Yeah. You're listening to Autodesk's Digital Builder Podcast, a show that inspires construction professionals to innovate and use technology to improve how they build our world. I'm Eric Thomas, and I've been working in construction for nearly a decade. And now I have the privilege to sit down with industry trailblazers to hear how they're solving construction's biggest challenges and redefining the future of the built environment. Welcome back to another episode of Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Today, we are talking about project controls. And we'll get into what the heck that is and what that encompasses, scheduling, document management, all kinds of fun stuff. But to tell that story today, I am joined by Emily Rech, the Director of Project Controls at Pond & Company. And she has a considerable amount of experience in this realm. And I'm really excited to just kind of dig into what the heck is project controls, scheduling, what are the cool tools that are out there right now that folks are using, and why folks should be excited about where the industry is headed in this realm. But Emily, I've got a question that I didn't tell you about. And so we're going to have fun with that one right now. I'm putting together a digital builder playlist where I want to know what people are listening to and what people are excited about right now. So what is at the top of your playlist right now? Is there a particular song or artist that you're really excited about?
Oh, wow. I was not expecting that question.
That's why I did it.
Okay, you're going to think this is kind of funny.
I like it. I want funny.
I actually really do like to listen to EDM music.
I'm a big EDM music fan as well.
Okay.
So it's all good. Any particular artist?
I think Mal P is hot right now. He's
all right.
Good artist.
Did you check out the new Dead Mouse album that's come out recently?
No, but I have been playing the new Zed album quite a bit. So.
All right. I'll have to check that one out. Well, thank you. We're going to add some EDM to the playlist here. I'm excited because I am an EDM fan. I'm not making that up.
Sweet.
And all right, so let's talk about construction, which is theoretically why we're all here today. Can you give me just kind of a heads up? What the heck are project controls? Like, what does this encompass? What kind of technology is tied into this? Why are you fired up about that?
Well, project controls, honestly, is how we manage risk on all of our projects, because it is the four pillars of project controls is your estimating, your scheduling, your budget management, and your document controls. You have all those four things working in sync, you are managing the risk on all of your projects. So it's a very important backbone to how we manage projects.
There's so much involved in it. And my biggest exposure is always tied to scheduling. And I know when we spoke last, you shared that you are bullish on scheduling. You've been a Primavera fan for a long time. You've been doing a lot of scheduling stuff. And I can think back to when I was still, working as a proposal manager, especially in the federal contracting side of things. And we would print out these schedules that I did not understand at that point in my career. And let's be real, I don't really understand when I look at them today. Anyway, it's a lot in there. But it'd be 30, 40, 50, 11 by 17 Z-folded pages of information. And this was 10, 12 years ago. And the amount of rich data that's in this is continuing to increase. And so what is it about scheduling that you're so excited about? What gets you so bullish and you keep coming back to the schedule every year?
Yes, correct. I have been doing scheduling for almost 20 years now, every iteration of Primavera. And scheduling is important because it's how we get to our deliverables on time. It's how we manage risk on our projects. And yeah, it gets really complex, but it has to be, because if you're missing out on detail, then you could be missing out on a major piece of the schedule that's going to dictate how you're going to finish on time. And time is money, period. So any which way you look at it, any contractor, any owner will tell you that. Scheduling is very complex. And yes, it gets to a point where there's thousands sometimes of activities, but they're all very important. And it's how you communicate those activities and how you communicate with the team and bring all of that together.
It's such a central communication tool. And I'd like to peel back the layers of the onion of that complexity a little bit. As I mentioned a moment ago, I was always just grateful for my schedule to be like, please give me the thing that I need so I can submit this proposal. But I didn't have much insight into how this was actually created. So of course, I gave up the ghost a little bit on a Primavera. I mentioned that already. That's one of the big tools for that. that activity tied to construction. But walk me through, how do we create these? What goes into it? And how do you feel confident and certain when you hand this to either an owner in a proposal, or you're actually using this as a living and breathing document on site? Like, how do you get there? That's wild.
First of all, obviously, understanding your contracts and understanding what the requirements are and the deliverables are. You really need that in order to start developing your schedule. And then you get into your work breakdown structure. So understanding what the phasing of your project is. And every project's different, whether you're talking about at Pond, we do everything from federal projects to industrial projects to oil and gas projects. So is it a horizontal project? What kind of phasing does that look like? Well, that's going to look very different than a vertical project. So understanding what the phasing needs to look like. So you build out that work breakdown structure. That work breakdown structure then not only dictates how you track time and activities, but it also needs to tie to your cost breakdown structure. That's the other very important piece. And that's how we help manage budgets and we manage progress on a project and how much you should be paying for a project as time goes on. So there's that earned value portion of it, right? So all of that's really important. If you don't tie that, I'll call it kind of the spine of the schedule together, so that it ties all those other important pieces, that's really the first step. Then you can start developing the activities and the relationship ties and what needs to come first and second, and build out your critical path. Once you identify your critical path, and this is an argument that a lot of schedulers will even get into, you can have more than one critical path. Something can fall off a critical path. And again, that's measuring your risk. So when we talk about risk registers and tying risk to schedules, it's the same kind of thing. When risks fall off, it's because you've bypassed that portion on the schedule, and now a new risk or a new critical path comes back on. So there's a lot that goes into it, but establishing how you're phasing the project, how you're building the work breakdown structure, how you're tying that to your budgets, how you're tying that to progress and productivity. It's a bigger piece than most people think. It's not just time.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it.
I appreciate you getting into that level of depth, because as you alluded to, there's so much that I think it's easy to not click down into if that's not tied to your direct role or scope. I mean, everybody's very familiar that schedule exists, and we might be behind schedule or ahead of schedule in a great project scenario. But I'm curious to know, with something so complex, and I feel like the schedulers, like the really good schedulers, are like almost like a genie. Like they know all this information and knowledge and have a lot of experience. But where are our shortcomings right now within the realm of scheduling? Where are the biggest challenges that you run into, whether it's tied to the creation of it or adhering to it, or communicating using the information into it? I'd be interested to hear more about that.
Sure. Well, yeah, like you alluded to, schedulers we're kind of a rare breed. I always say that it's kind of, there's like a scheduling brain. So like people that play Tetris really well and see how pieces move together when other people can't see it.
I love that.
Kind of like that. But yeah, so the challenge is finding those people that have that kind of technical thinking and also know the industry, understand how projects come together. So just like any kind of engineering or construction role, you really want to make sure that people are getting some time in the field and learning all of that. So it's difficult to find people, first of all, but then it's also communication. Communication is the number one thing. And it's trying to figure out how you're communicating with the engineering folks, with the people in the field, and then accurately communicating that back to the project management team and the owner, the client, to make sure that everybody's tied in and on board. So communication is the biggest hurdle to get through to make sure that your schedules are successful.
It's such a critical tool to leverage in the broader picture of construction. And I'm curious, aside from Primavera, which I already gave up the ghost on, what other tools are tied to the creation of this? Like, what does the tech stack look like for your average scheduler?
It's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of communication. There are, a variety of tools out there that we use for proposals and that sort of thing.
None of which existed when I was doing that job.
Yeah, there's one that we use that's tied to PowerPoint. It's just a pretty picture. There's not a lot of logic behind it, but it's a good communication tool because we just do real high-level milestones. And a lot of times that's what clients really can visualize and sink into. A client's not going to be able to go through a 1,000 activity Primavera schedule and
I remember
soak all of
that.
it in.
Like they would actually ask for in the proposal, they give it like, give us the overview schedule, and that'd be like 3 pages. And then in the appendix, there'd be the 700-page, 10,000 activity schedule. And that one was there because the scheduling nerd did want to see that. But, the owner, like you said, they want the high level
They
because
want
they're
the
not in
roll
the
up.
weeds. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a variety of ways to do it with layouts and stuff like that. But, in Primavera, I don't think that there's going to be another tool that's going to really, go toe to toe with Primavera anytime soon. It really is the right tool for doing those high level and detailed schedules. And it's the one that's always going to hold up, tried and true. However, I do believe that tools like the schedule tool in Autodesk Construction Cloud is a wonderful communication tool because it's easy. You can take the native file from Primavera, dump it into the schedule tool, and now you have something that's a lot easier to communicate with your field folks and with your client. That's really been kind of a game changer for us. We always used to, for decades, literally, print out a schedule, send it over to the field folks, redline it out, scan it in from the field, send it back. We'd have to go through manually. Now there's a tool where they can actually just make comments on the fly and they can see things a lot more quickly. And what I also like about it, we used to get, I'd send a schedule out to the team and they'd be like, oh, can you just show me blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a filter tool in the Autodesk Construction Cloud schedule tool. So they can do their own filtering, they can do their own sorting. They now can pull those layouts together instead of poking myself or my scheduling team to constantly like, can you print it this way? Can you print it that way? Now they have the access to do that. And that's a huge plus. So there's a lot of tools now and a lot of things that we can do that are going to help us with that communication piece, which again, is the most important part of scheduling.
I love that because you're eliminating a bit of a bottleneck, whether you're you're not intentionally being a bottleneck, but you can only do so much. And when there are so many folks asking for information, having to manually take that and manage it is so challenging. And I just look back at I shudder a little bit because I am not a proposal manager anymore because I burned out a little bit, as I've alluded to in the past. I just remember getting sent 4, 5, 6, 7 different Word docs, all marked up with separate track changes, many of which conflicted with each other, and then being told, okay, now put the proposal together and please incorporate all this feedback. Especially as a very junior early in my career, it was very hard to figure out my comfort level of being the one to decide which of these executives' feedback I was going to take, much less try to get everything in there before that proposal was done. And I think it's a really adjacent example as far as just that manual markup of the schedule where you're writing this up and you're scanning it and faxing it to me. Like, no, please, no. Like, come on, it's 2024. We don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah. And that's how we did it for decades.
Yeah. I'm thankful now. Like when I stepped out of the industry, as far as working at GCs, we were just starting to see more tools and more technology available for the construction industry, made for the construction industry. And I'm so grateful that that's continued to increase. I mean, we're here at Autodesk University right now. As I look off into the expo hall, amidst the blinding lights that we're sitting in front of right now, there's so many tools and so many options. I'm sure there's a couple startups out here that would love to get your feedback on, their own scheduling tools as we move this industry and the needle forward. But I want to talk a little bit more about project controls broadly again. I've lasered into scheduling a bit. So can you tell me a bit more about the culture of creating documentation and just how you manage that? Because it's such a critical part of project controls. And as we create more and more data every day, it becomes a more challenging one to navigate that data management.
You're exactly right. We've had a lot of tools that have come out that have been very useful, and it's great. We've got this big boom of technology that's helping us to be better project managers. But with that, we have almost too many options now.
Decision paralysis. It's very easy to get stuck there.
Exactly. We've got a situation where we've got, people sharing stuff in SharePoint or in FTP sites or inbox.com or Teams is a big one now. And so you've got all these different ways that people are sharing data, but true document controls is you want to have one source of truth. And how do you bring all of that back together? So that's one thing that my team works very hard at doing is making sure that we know where all of our data is. Right now, we're trying to bring all of that into Docs and ACC. And because we know it's all there, we know it's sortable, and we can then do better project closeout because we know everything is in one place.
Yeah, no
it's
more
better
stacks
communication.
of binders.
Yeah, right. I mean, back in the day,
it was so painful.
Back in the day, you'd go out to the job site and you had a dedicated job site trailer just for all of your documentation. And you had a couple of I'll call them almost librarians that basically ran it and didn't let you check anything out. But now we have, again, a lot of different tools. So document control is so important. And then along with it, and again, ACC does a wonderful job with it, is version control, rev control. So it's one of the most important things. And I always say to everybody, kind of doom and gloom, but I almost wish that everybody had at least one opportunity in their career to go through a claim situation. And I say that not to be Debbie Downer, but it teaches you how important it is to know exactly where everything is at your fingertips. Because when somebody's asking you, hey, what happened on this project at this point in time, you can be like, I can go back to exactly what you're looking for and you know where it is. So document controls is incredibly important.
Your point about the claims is so spot on, though, and I've been part of a couple requests for equitable adjustments to the federal government for contracts that we were working on, and meeting folks who are really deep in the world of claims and the questions they're asking. You go, where's this data? Do you have this information? And I'm sitting here, junior proposal writer at this point, just trying to talk to the PM and going, can you tell me what happened, and they open up their SharePoint or a just random file server at that point. And it was like, okay, you've got, project schedule V1, V2, V2 underscore final, V3. And you're just like, I'm going to die right now. Like, how on earth am I going to communicate what happened when internally we can't, or somebody leaves the organization or something changes and suddenly you're done. Like, what if that, that project trailer caught on fire overnight and all of that record keeping was gone? And so I think just this importance as we continue to move towards platforms, regardless of what platform you're centralizing on, is incredibly important for the success of the business. I think folks sometimes might not give enough credit to the people who are very focused on project controls, because it's a challenging job, but it's an incredibly important one for the success of the business, whether it's today in the project we're building or later when a thing happens that we're not excited about happening.
Yep. It's like I said at the beginning, it's managing your risk, managing your project risk. That's all the things that we're doing.
When we last spoke, we talked a bit more about the risk management and the communicating potentially bad news as well. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on just the culture of communication and, when that news isn't good. Like, how do you manage to share that with the owner in a way that maintains those relationships and, keeps them confident that the project's on schedule and on track?
One thing that our team really prides itself in is being completely transparent with our clients. But the sooner you can communicate those changes to the all the stakeholders, all the team players, the sooner that you guys can address things. So whether it's a schedule bust or whether it's new scope or a missed scope or whatever kind of change, again, change management's a lot easier to do if you're managing all of those other risks up front, including schedule and budget management. Yeah, it just comes back to managing your risk.
I'd agree. And I can think back to projects where a couple of the folks on this project control side weren't comfortable sharing that bad news. And sometimes we're inclined to not be as transparent about it, and because they're trying to fix the problem themselves or make that go away. And your point about just being upfront is so important, because we are a team, whether it's an IPD project or a more traditional delivery method. Everybody's here to try to fix it. And if you don't share that information as soon as you can, the folks who might have the experience to help you navigate that don't have the opportunity to do it. And now you're playing catch up. You're not being proactive. There's an onus on leaders, whether it's, the C-suite or project leaders or, wherever you sit, to communicate that it's okay to share this bad news. It's not a punitive situation, regardless of if it's your fault or not. We're not here to, assign blame. We're here to figure out how to fix the problem, because problems happen in construction. Construction is a crazy industry to work in.
Right.
Stuff happens all the time.
All the time. And there's always going to be things that come up in construction. There's always going to be issues that have to be dealt with. But again, just being as transparent as possible. And yeah, you're going to have those tough conversations. But again, it goes back to having everything organized. And if everything's organized, those tough conversations are not that bad.
Yeah, nobody likes to get caught when they get that follow-up question from the owner. And then you go, oh, I don't have any of the information for that. But if you don't, it's okay to say that, as long as you're like, I'm going to go find that information for you, not just a weird dance and, an extended answer that doesn't answer the question, hoping they, move on to the next question.
Right.
It's a relationship that you're building. And I think those are the owners, when you really define that with those clients, they come back.
Correct.
You're going to have more work from them. And, the greatest way to increase your profit margins is you have this relationship, you have everything built out, your systems, you know how to work together. You already know Kathy in accounting and Sam, who's the project executive on this one. You don't got to start from zero. And those relationships are so critical in maintaining and continuing. You might have a serial builder that builds, or an owner that builds over and over and over again.
Yep.
You want that trust. And when you lose that trust, you lose it quick.
Right. But again, it comes back to being organized, having those tight constraints around your project controls. So managing your schedule, managing those documents, managing the budgets and the estimates, and making sure that it's all correct and pulled together. Again, it's risk management, and then it's communication.
Yeah, I think construction companies more often today are also risk management companies, and they're technology companies at the same time. And
Absolutely.
it's such an interesting shift. And I just cry inside every time I see the data points that go, construction isn't innovating and construction doesn't use technology. And it's like BS. Like, that is not true.
I know. So I've said this a few times now over the last 2 years, but I wholeheartedly believe it. Construction is the one that's driving change right now in the AEC industry, 100%. And I think that a lot of people feel like maybe that's the tail wagging the dog, but it's true. We're kind of pulling everything along because we need to be able to get to product faster, right? When we're getting our clients online, when we're getting, it's throughput, it's product, it's whatever it is that we're building for them. They need to get there faster because speed is the name of the game, but we've got to do it efficiently. We've got to do it accurately. And that's why project controls is so important.
So I've got a question. I'd like to go back to scheduling again and just kind of that data aspect of it. So I've heard the term 4D scheduling come up often, and I know a lot of folks might not be familiar with that. Can you share a little bit more about what that actually means and what kind of information is captured in that approach?
Sure. 4D scheduling is actually very exciting to me, and I feel like the industry is going to go there more and more. Now, it's not a new concept. It's been around for a while, where you're basically using the model or in some form or what fashion, highlighting each of the different phases, and that coincides with the different phases in your schedule. So again, going back to that work breakdown structure, and it's a great progress tracker. It's awesome, and it really does help communicate the schedule better, which again, we talked about communication is key. I feel like we're getting closer and closer to getting there as our models get better. Now that Autodesk has these other tools that can tie things like the schedule tool to activities, and I think we're going to get there, and you're going to see this coming very, very soon. But yes, that excites me more than most tools, but that's just because scheduling is near and dear to my heart.
I like it though. Like any opportunity to enrich in the data in a real meaningful way is a win. And I think that that's going to be a great tool as we continue to leverage as construction continues to navigate all of the changes everybody's familiar with. I don't need to go down the list right now, and all the challenges that we're having right now. Finding tools like 4D scheduling and artificial intelligence, all kinds of other different things are really coming to the table right now in a way that helps us. I hate the phrase "do more with less." That one doesn't feel good to me because it's like you're putting more of a burden on, but it's doing more with what we have, and in making a really intentional effort to give folks the resources and the tools to build on and expand. And I think 4D scheduling is one that fits right up in that list.
Oh yeah, it's going to give us better progress tracking. It'll tie to asset management, tie back to your estimates. Like, there's so much more that we can be doing. We're getting there. We're right on the cusp of making it a lot more easy. Again, it's not a new concept. It's been around for a while, but it was a very tedious task to do it in the past. Now that we've got a lot more tools in our back pocket with ACC, I think we're going to get there really quick.
And that's the exciting point right now, I think, where even when we're not talking about a groundbreaking new technology, a lot of these concepts have existed for a while, but the back end, whether it's the software or the hardware supporting that concept, wasn't quite there. And so a lot of folks would look at some of these tools, regardless of what it was, and they go, that's too much hassle, or that's not giving me what I need right now. And I always encourage folks, take another look at these tools. If it's been a while since you've clicked into some tool that you might have dismissed in the past, I think virtual reality and augmented reality is one that is near and dear to my heart in that realm. If you put a headset on 6 years ago, you might have looked at that and gone, this is useless. This is slow and clunky, and gosh, how am I going to use this? go put a brand new Quest 3 headset on or something now. People are going to be wowed because what is actually possible with the hardware has changed entirely, and the conversation is very different. And so this kind of leads into my final couple of questions for you. I'm curious, what in particular are you bullish or really excited about for the next 5 or 10 years with regards to technology? Is there anything in particular that we haven't talked about right now that you're really fired up about?
You hit it on the head with the 4D scheduling. Like I think there's a lot more that we can get there with. Same thing with estimating. The more that we can pull data directly from our models and get more accurate estimating, more accurate numbers, those types of things really excite me. And I do think that there's a lot there with AI that's going to help us also do better. So, for example, how we're trending on different scopes of work and estimating. AI is going to help us to make sure that we're doing a better job each iteration that we go into on the next building. So I think that excites me a lot. It's that level of efficiency and that level of accuracy that's going to help us improve.
Yeah, I think we're starting to get more tools for all of our friends, regardless of what phase of construction that they sit in. I've had a couple really great pre-construction conversations really recently where the scope of estimator or pre-construction executive or leader has changed so much from just you're in the corner and you're crunching numbers and you have all this information, whether it's in your head or in all the existing documentations. And the scope of those roles is shifting, especially as the tools that's available to them to do their job better increases. And I think, 4D scheduling, I think that fits into there. I think AI is fitting into there in the right moments and right places. And just having access to information in a way that we didn't necessarily have 5 years ago, it's making a huge improvement. And I think those are the things that are going to keep us afloat as we continue struggling with, retaining a talent and bringing new people into the industry. And just the needs that we have to meet to build in the next 20 years are tremendous. And
Yes.
so all these tools, we got to grab them. We got to build on them now because now's the moment.
Yes. Yep. It's all about efficiency gain. So how are we going to get there faster? How are we going to get throughput? How are we going to get product? How are we going to do this for our clients faster? And it's those efficiency gains. So I can't necessarily create more people, but I can make them more efficient and get the job done faster and still accurately.
It's an augmentation conversation, most certainly not a replacement as far as people in the project go. And I think folks sometimes get a little antsy. They go, are you here to take my position? And I don't think that's the case at all. I think the way that we do work and get work done is going to evolve and evolve a lot more rapidly in the next 10 years than it has in the prior 10. But nobody's job's going away. There's no room for that because of the needs of what we need to build right now.
No, but I think it would give us the opportunity, like I brought up earlier, all of these engineers, construction managers, project managers, they need to be out in the field. They need to see more of this stuff hands-on. But when they're tied to their desk chair because they've got to spend more time in the software producing, then they don't get those opportunities. But people that put their eyes on stuff and spend more time in the field, they are much more efficient at their job as an engineer or project manager, hands down.
I love that too. There's a connection to what we're building that's incredibly important as well.
Yes.
I remember the first time I had the privilege of doing a site walk on a proposal that I had helped win. And it was such an incredible feeling because up until that point, I was just creating giant binders full of paper that I'm sending off to, contracting officers and all this other crazy stuff. And to just stand on the roof of this half-finished building with the super and he's walking me through, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is a real thing. Like there's a tactile part of this industry that I absolutely love. And I haven't been on site recently, and I got to get back out again because I just want to see what's changed since the last time I had those conversations and got to get my boots out. So I appreciate you pointing that out as well. I've got one final question for you. It's one I ask everybody, and it's one of my favorites. So what is one tool that you use on every project, no matter what project you're working on? What's the consistent tool you carry with you?
For almost all of our projects, I know it's not a shocker, but we do use Primavera.
I am not surprised you said that.
Outside of that, though, I think ACC, and again, it's because of document controls, one point of truth, having everybody connected, that communication, that's what it's all about.
I love that. I did not tell you or ask you to say that answer. So anybody out there who might be questioning the veracity of that, I had no influence in any regard. But I do appreciate the glimpse into, just some of the tools that you use. And, I'm inclined to agree. I don't know if Primavera is going to go anywhere anytime soon. I just don't know how such a robust tool just disappears into the ether. But I think we're really augmenting, iterating the way that we manage schedules. And it's just great that we're not printing out PDFs and writing all over them and scanning them and then going back and forth again. Like the further we can get from that, I think the better our industry is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining me on this episode here. If you're out there listening and you're wondering, who is this guy up here yelling into a microphone? I am Eric Thomas, the host of Digital Builder. You can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm builder_digital. I'll never call it X because I just am not going to. So find me on Twitter or where else you'd like to go. If you like the show, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you notice, my friend Dave is sitting behind us right now. You can watch us on YouTube as well. We are a video podcast. A lot of great stuff up there. We are approaching 100 episodes, or by the time this comes out, I think we'll have crossed that threshold. So for everybody listening right now, thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye.